It is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker who knows firsthand what it feels like to lead in rooms where your voice is questioned, where your expertise is tested, where your presence is underestimated. She also knows what it takes to rise anyway. Samantha Kaye Harris is the CEO of SKH Solutions, and she is a workforce retention and confidence strategist who helps women stop questioning themselves and start owning their power in high pressure environments. She has spent 33 years with the same organization, including more than 27 years leading in male dominated spaces, where she often has had to navigate environments where her voice was challenged, interrupted, and overlooked. Today, she is using that lived experience to help women rebuild their confidence, trust their voice, and lead with greater clarity and conviction in the environments you choose to stay in. He is the creator of the Brag Bag Strategy and the Truth Method, practical tools designed to help women speak up, stand firm, and stop second guessing, especially in critical moments. In 2026, Samantha was honored with the Martin Luther King Jr. Leadership Award in recognition of her leadership and the impact within her community. So today's session is one that many of us will deeply resonate to. Because even strong, accomplished women, you can hesitate when you're constantly interrupted, questioned, or made to feel like you need to prove yourself over and over again. So her session today is called Leading and Standing in Your Power in Male Dominated Industries. And she's going to share practical strategies for responding in real time, trusting your voice, even in spaces that were not originally designed with you in mind. This is not just a conversation about confidence, it's a conversation about ownership, presence, and leadership. So please join me in welcoming Samantha Kaye Harris to the summit.
Hello, everyone. How many women do you know who have worked in a male-dominated industry? Women who were well-versed, women who started out killing it, showing up, and they left. Do you know? Was it your mother? Was it maybe your sister? Mm. Was it your aunt or your best friend who decided to leave? Because women leave within the first 3 to 5 years when working in leadership positions that they worked hard, who they went to school, which when they went to school to become accomplished, they leave. They do not stay. Whether you're in the corporate sector, someone leaves 5.2% of the women who are in those leadership positions leave within the first 3 to 5 years. Excuse me. And if you are an entrepreneur, 50% of women who become entrepreneurs who are leading in organizations, who are leading in the trades, they close their businesses because of the microaggressions that they face daily within the first year. Not because they're not talented, not because their careers could not have been successful in these departments, but because of the microaggressions they face. I worked in a male-dominated industry for 27 plus years. Yes, 27 plus years. I recently retired. And in those 27 plus years, I was in a leadership position. So I understand why women leave. I understand why they choose not to stay. They choose not to stay because of the microaggressions being spoken over in meetings. Has anyone ever told you about that time that they were spoken over? The time that someone took their work and made it their own, knowing that you helped them create it and that you were the lead. I understand. And that's why every time I get on this stage to talk about it, I am in awe of myself because it wasn't always this way for me. It was times when I can remember not speaking up. Even though my family called me, oh, here's the boss. Even though they call me boss lady at the job for over 27 plus years, I still were resisting being the leader because of all the microaggressions I face daily. And I remember one time, it was fall of 2018, and I led a team of over 100 men, and we had new recruits coming in. And on this day, the new recruits that I had, I was taking them around and I was showing them the areas where they would work, where their locker rooms were, because I worked in the trades. I worked with my hands. I showed up every day. I was like, hey, this is what I do. And this is what you can do. And I happened to see an employee, a direct report, not where he was assigned that morning. So I said, hey, what are you doing here? Because, anything is possible. A person might not be feeling well. They may just need a moment to themselves. And he said to me, who are you to question me? You're not the boss of me. You're not even a real boss. I know. Could you imagine someone saying that to you and they're your direct report? You tell them every day what to do. You assign them to their jobs. You sign off on their timesheets. You grant them days off. So at this time, I'm just looking, that blank stare, hand shaking. Steam is probably coming from my ears right now. And I believe my head turned around 3 to 4 times. Because not only did he say it to me, he said it in front of new direct reports, more men. So I stopped him and told him, get back to work. As if I'm the general, I put 4 fingers on my shoulder and I said, get back to the job. By the time he went back to the job and I finished doing the introductions of the new employees, he had went to see the chief at the time. And the chief had called me in, and I didn't know any of this had happened because I was out doing what I needed to do. And we had to have a roundtable meeting. So I'm sitting there, the only woman, which is normal for me. And I'm sitting and I said, oh, this guy must have done something else. Unbeknownst to me, he had made a complaint. And in his complaint, he said that I hurt his feelings, that I embarrassed him. Wow. Could you imagine? I'm sitting there at the table and I am just about to shrink, slide underneath the table. I felt that's what I was doing, that I had slid underneath the table and I was begging someone to just cover me, protect me, hold me to make me feel safe. Because fear had creeped in, like a lot of times when it comes to us as women in male-dominated industries that are in leadership positions. That fear that I'd worked so hard to get here, and now it may be taken away, or I may be reduced to a different position because someone made a complaint against me. And my chief said to me in that moment, Samantha, you don't have to be so animated. You can be the boss, but you don't have to be so animated. Me, animated? I thought as I somehow made it back to my office because it was like I walked through a maze that day. I don't know how I made it back to my office. I'm not sure when or what I did, but I remember sitting down at my desk. My eyes were closed. slumped, head down. And I looked up in my office and it was a sign. And as if it was a neon sign, bright, blinking, blinking. Someone had given me as a joke. But at that moment, it meant everything to me because it said behind every successful woman is herself. It was like this sign that, hey, you can do this. You didn't get to this position by keeping your head down, sitting slumped over, having doubts that this is the right thing for you. You got here because it was something inside of you that pushed you, motivated. You went to school, you became an expert in this area, in the trades, and now you're leading. But I wasn't sure exactly what I needed to do, even though I knew that I wanted to be there, even though I knew I worked hard to get there. So I had to think about it. I had to figure out what I needed to do, how I needed to show up. So I thought about it and what I did. Moving forward, I started journaling what was going on, actually putting it on paper, actually getting it out of my mouth, actually saying what was going on, what I was feeling, because I wasn't putting on any pretenses. I was breathing it in, writing it out, getting it out of me. And I still knew I needed to do something else. Anyone else know that is something else missing, that you need to do something else to get you to that next level? So I went to therapy. I did. Therapy is a wonderful thing. I went, I understood that it wasn't me. It was the microaggressions. And I was being trained to accept because of the system, the patriarchal system. And I had just stepped into it because a lot of it was conditioning. So I was just doing what I knew to do: be quiet, accept, allow, be grateful. And then the next step I did, I got me a coach because now I understand all the things that was happening and why. So now I wanted to step into that next level because I could see clear as day what was going on, how I was showing up, and how I still was feeling like, hey, I better stand still. It was that fear of what would happen if, that fear that someone could take. I was having scarcity mindset every single day. Anyone else ever have that? Like, what if they take this? What if I'm not enough? I have to keep proving myself. I have to keep showing up. How am I going to ever really lead if I don't stay and allow? Or should I just leave? But I worked hard. I wanted to stay. So I worked with a coach. And in that, I understood. I understood that what people thought about me, how they felt I should show up, was not my responsibility. I got to show up for me. I got to stand for me. And that changed the game for me. I'm not sure if anyone else understands. If it do, put change in the comments. Show up for yourself because that allowed me to change how I looked at how people looked at me. It was no longer my responsibility to make them okay with who I am. That I get to show up as the leader that I am today because I did the work on me and I got to understand me. And I remember another night I was working. It was November. maybe 2019. I'm going to say maybe November, it could have been December, and we had inspections and we had qualifications to make sure that we were approved to keep our certifications at my job. And I ran the desk to make sure this happened. And that night, I had a manager come in, and he came in. He'd never been in any other night. And he came in because he had hired a friend of his, and he wanted to be there to show this friend around. And when he introduced everyone, there was two people besides myself there. He said, "Hey, this is this person gave their title." He said, "And this is Samantha. She doesn't do much around here. But did you not hear? I led, I made sure that our certifications and that we were qualified so that we wouldn't be shut down. I did all of that, the leader that I was. I knew where 102 men were, 102 pieces of equipment on the airfield. And I sat there for a moment. And because I had started to do the work on myself, I understood in that moment that I needed to use my voice. As I sat there clutching my cup of chamomile tea, I clenched my cup, I held my head up high, and I turned to him. And I said, "Are you speaking to me?" And he said, "Yes, I'm talking about you." I said, "There's no way you could be talking about me." And at that moment in time, I was able to run every qualifier down one by one by one. And he stood there quietly like a statue. And I still wasn't done. I ended up telling him what real leaders do. They don't try to build others by tearing others down, their other employees down. And he left. And I sat up with my head high, unclenched my coffee, my tea. Excuse me, I don't drink coffee. And anyone else tea drinkers, drop tea in the chat. And I drank my tea in peace with my shoulders back and my head high. And how did I do this? Because I had did the work. I had did the work on myself. And I started standing in my truth. And at that moment, I knew that standing in my truth was my key to me leading successfully, leading without fear, leading even if I was fearful, but to lead unapologetically. Because when I stood in my truth, I learned that I could trust myself. I trusted what I knew, who I was everything that I needed. I didn't need anyone to validate me. I also learned when standing in my truth to respect myself. Someone put respect in the chat. Because when you respect yourself, you're not going to let someone else say and do what they want. Because I understood that I could trust myself. And in that truth, I learned to understand myself. And in learning to understand myself, that meant that I had did that work that I was talking about earlier. I got me a therapist, I got a coach, and I showed up as me, fully understanding that what other people thought, what other people felt was not my responsibility. Me understanding me and why I was showing up fully qualified was all that I needed. And when I stood in my truth, I learned to treasure me. I learned to put me first, not a job, not a person. And in my personal, professional, my social, and in my emotional life, I led like I am the woman that I am because I understood me. I respected me and I trusted me. And in standing in my truth, I learned to hold me, to honor me. And when you honor yourself, you honor every bit of who you are as a woman. And that's what we do as leaders. When we stand in our truth, we honor who we are. We do not contort and become what society says. We hold on to us and our beliefs and our truth, and we don't mind standing flat footed in it, standing on business, because it motivates us. We don't need someone to say, good job. We don't need someone to say, you're an amazing woman, because you already know it when you stand in your truth. And how do we do this? When I work with my clients, we build that truth. We live in that truth because we build a brag bag. And in your brag bag, you already have all your receipts of who you are as the leader that you are. You lead with your convictions. You lead in your truth. You lead in your honesty. You get to stay. Because again, so many women leave within the first 3 to 5 years. If you're an entrepreneur, if you work in the trades, if you work in corporate offices, leadership, when you're in an industry where you're the first, only, or one of few, that fear creeps in because they may talk over you. They may ask you, because they did me, are you sure? Has anyone ever asked you, are you sure? Is that the right decision? Has someone tapped you on your shoulder just to quiet you down when you're having a conversation? These are the things that we face, and the fear keeps us from standing in our truth. So, building your brag bag so that you can stand in your truth allows you to lead in your own integrity, in your own abilities. Because as women, we get to decide, not the labels that they give us. We don't want to be too aggressive, too assertive, because that's what makes them fearful of us. But instead of us taking it as the thing to be feared, take it as our kryptonite, and that their inability to understand that we belong there is not our responsibility. It's not a weakness. That fear can be taken and recognized and understood so that you can stand, so that you can believe that you belong there without having to jump through hoops. We have been taught as women that something is always going to happen. But I challenge you today to believe and to know that we don't always have to stay on the hamster wheel of life and continuously prove that we belong in our leadership positions. We have been taught to just be always aware that we were given an opportunity. We were not given anything, we earned it. And in your knowing that you belong, in knowing that you are a good leader, you get to show up. You get to fully embrace the leader that you are. It's no more showing up, hoping that they see you. It's no more wondering if you're supposed to be there. It's no more you being apologetic for being brave and bold and audaciously you. So, ladies, today, I challenge you to lead in your truth, to hold on to your truth so that you can trust respect, understand, treasure, and honor you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samantha, for sharing such an honest and powerful and encouraging message with us today. I think so many of us listening can relate to the experience that of someone questioning your voice, about shrinking yourself, or feeling that pressure to prove your worth in environments that made us feel unseen or overlooked. And what I appreciate so much about your message is that it reminds us that confidence is not about becoming someone different. It's about learning to trust yourself enough to fully step into what you already are, because leadership is not just about expertise, it's also about believing that your voice deserves to be heard. And I think that reminder was so incredibly powerful for so many of us today. So thank you again for sharing your story, your insight, and your encouragement. For everyone who's joining us, make sure you scan the QR code, you get connected with Samantha, follow her on LinkedIn, follow her on social media, and as always, if you have any questions, put those questions in the Q&A box. She will respond to you directly via email. Once again, Samantha, thank you so much for coming today to the summit to speak to us.